So it's now time to sow your storage beetroot, any time between sort of the end of May and the first week in June, something like that. And it'll be ready to harvest about early October, you know, first, second week in October, something like that. I like that timing because that allows me to put the field beans in after the beetroot, and then after the field beans go the brassicas, so it's a little bit of a nice rotation going there. The field beans fix nitrogen into the soil, which is really useful for the brassicas, of course, but they're also a great harvest of like a spinach substitute over winter and into early spring. And so in this video I'll show you how I do my beetroot, but I've also got this nice little ebook that talks about really beetroot all year round, and that's achieved through a combination of sowing first earlies, second earlies, main crop and storage crop, and also by storing them, the ones that you harvest in October. And beetroot stores so well that an October harvest will, well, we're still eating ours now towards the end of May. Sometimes it doesn't quite get that far, depends how warm May is, but basically as soon as it starts to warm up, the quality of the stored beetroot really starts to degrade a little bit, but by then hopefully you've got your first earlies. So I'm planting my beetroot today, and the first tray that I'm doing is Cylindra. I really like Cylindra as a storage beetroot. It's long and thin, and you can lay it down in the storage trays and it just works really well. I go just below my fingernail, so maybe about 12 millimeters, something like that. Beetroot are quite a big seed. And when you look at the seeds, you might think that there's just a single seed in each kind of cluster, but actually that's not the case. Let's just stop this and take a look. So there we've got the quotes seeds, and hopefully you can see maybe in this one that this kind of little package here is actually 2, maybe 3 seeds in a cluster. And so when you put 1 seed in, you might get 1 plant, but you might get as many as 3. Now when I'm doing beetroot for storage, I only really want a maximum of 2 seedlings, and so I only put 2 seeds in, and then if I end up getting 6 seedlings, then obviously I'm going to thin those down to 2. If I get 3, then I might just let it happen, but ideally I'm looking for 1 or 2, and that's because I'm harvesting all of my storage beetroot on pretty much the same day, sometime in October, early October, and then immediately after that I'm reconditioning the bed and putting field beans in. And because the timing is quite important, in order to get a good crop of field beans you need to get them well established before winter. I really can't afford any risks. Now the other element of risk avoidance here is that I've also done a test sowing of these seedlings. And I normally do my test sowings in a tray like this, and I'll put say 15-20 seeds in a module like this, and then I'll just count how many germinate, and if I'm getting sort of 15-20 plants out of that, then I'm happy to do 2 seeds per module. And I do tend to just prick those out into a tray, and here's the tray that I pricked out. And yeah, I don't really like pricking out beetroot. It's very fiddly, the roots are very long, it's quite hard to get them in a module. But anyway, I did it, and it just gives me a few spare plants just in case I get any failures. So I'm going to carry on doing this. I've got 5 trays to plant. So there we go, that's my first tray of Cylindra. I'm only doing 1 tray of Cylindra, as I say, because they're pretty big roots, and these are the ones that I store and keep for the longest. The next batch I'm going to do are Bolt Hardy. So the Bolt Hardy that I did was from mole seeds, and you get a huge number in each packet, and fortunately beetroot lasts a long time, so these are the ones that I used in spring and summer last year, and again I'm using them now. And that's the beauty of a germination test, because you can't really take much of a risk with the dates when you're planting them now. They really need to be late May, very early June, if you're going to get a good guaranteed harvest by October. And then the final batch that I'm doing are these Burpees Golden, an absolutely gorgeous beetroot, and they're great for people who find the earthy taste of the red beetroot is a bit too much for them. And again, I'm just putting 2 in here, hoping for 2 plants in the end. And of course, people might be thinking, well, don't you do more than 2 plants? Why not more? Well, you do in summer. So for a summer harvest, because in a summer harvest, you want to just pick your beets continuously from kind of July through August and September, probably from the same sowing. And so in that case, you might want 4 plants, and every 2 weeks you kind of pick the biggest plant and let them grow on, and then you pick the next biggest and the next biggest, and finally you get the last one. And often the last one is only a baby beet. It doesn't grow on very much, but even so, it's a nice way of getting a nice continuous harvest. But when you want to pick them all at the same time, you don't want small ones and big ones. You want them all medium to big. And you will still get some variation, of course, that's just nature. And so we use the small ones between October and the end of the year. And we don't bother, we just put those in a sack. And then the ones that we want to store for sort of January, February, March, April and May, beetroot stores really well. We store those in damp pine shavings, and the details of all that are all in my ebook, as well as lots of other hints and tips about growing beetroot and extending the season and storage. And you can find details of my ebook below in the description, or you can just type gardening-ebook.info into your web browser, and that will pull up the book. And it's free, and it's fairly comprehensive, and it gets better every year. And this winter in particular, there's going to be a huge update to all of the individual growing guides for a great many different types of veggies. But the content so far covers all the basics and all the techniques and the approach that you want to take if you want to grow all year round. Lots of stuff about growing under cover and in polytunnels and things like that. So yeah, take a look at that if you're interested. So when you're watering these in, you don't need a huge amount of water at this stage. I just generally just go over this like this, and I'll do it twice. And if you oversaturate them, then you'll probably end up with fungus gnats, and you'll also end up with green algae on the surface, although green algae is not just caused by saturating, it's also, I think, caused by a lack of ventilation. So once these start growing, I'll have a little fan, just a very little sort of USB fan, just providing a little ventilation over the surface, and that means the surface dries out in between waterings, and green algae doesn't really develop when the surface dries out between waterings. So that's the key. And when you pick this up now, it should be nice and heavy. So I think this is a 500 milliliter bottle, and that's what I've got left after doing a tray. So I don't know, 350 milliliters per tray, something like that. Now the reason that I can get away with watering so lightly is because I'm going to leave these at home. If you were going to put these in a polytunnel or a greenhouse, and you were going to leave them for a week, which I wouldn't recommend, then you would have to really saturate these, but I can keep an eye on them. When I see them drying out, I can give them a little bit more water, because as I said, they're going to be at home on a windowsill, not a sunny windowsill either, because beetroot are a cool weather plant. They normally germinate in early spring or mid-spring in the soil. So that's the kind of conditions I want to recreate. So I want them to grow with lots of light, but fairly cool. And so I'm not going to grow them in a polytunnel or a greenhouse. I'm going to grow them under grow lights. I'm just lucky that I've got grow lights that I can use for that. And that gives me the right balance between top growth and root growth. I want quite a lot of root growth. And if they're in a really warm location with lots of sunlight, you tend to get lots of floppy top growth and not really enough root growth. And then when you try and take them out the modules, there's not much root development there, so they don't get off to such a good start. But I've grown them many times without grow lights, and they do succeed. You just have to plant them a little bit deeper, but because I've got the ideal conditions, I'm going to use them. So I'll be germinating my beetroot, those 5 trays, on the floor in a cool bedroom, about 18 degrees centigrade at this time of year, and that's about perfect for them. And once they've broken surface, I would probably move them here if I didn't have grow lights. It's a little bit cooler, well, quite a lot cooler actually, than a polytunnel or a greenhouse, which is just exactly what you want. It's still nice and bright. So here's a quick look at my first earlies and second earlies, and my main crop are just little seedlings at the moment in the ground. But the first earlies are in the polytunnel, and I'll be harvesting those as baby beets. So I get them really early, so they will be ready in early June. And then the second earlies, which are interplanted into the brassica beds and the onion beds, they will become ready sort of July sort of time. And then the main crop through August and September, and then the storage crop in October. So that's the way it goes. So I hope you like this quick video. My name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.